and welcome to a special inauguration edition of the One Hood Power Hour. This is your co-host Kahari Mosley here with my illustrious team, my co-hosts Miracle Jones and Ryan White. And wow, what a historic day here in the United States of America. We have so much to talk about. We have a great group of guests, local leaders will be sharing their reflections on this historic day, as well as their expectations for the first 100 days, as well as the next 4 years. But before we get into that, let's just share some of our own reflections. One thing that I'll say is that I think more than anything else, my first reaction is just wow. Amanda Gorman. It felt like in some ways we went to the Amanda Gorman show, and an inauguration kind of happened around it. I thought her words were very powerful, and that was the one thing that really stuck with me, along with other things. But that was the first thing that really that comes front of mind. Was the young poet laureate words that I was saying, that she may not ever be able to leave the White House. She may get escorted directly to the communications department and hired as a speechwriter. Because if President Biden could capture that kind of eloquence over the next 4 years, he'll be in a good place. But what were some of your thoughts on this historic day?
Well, today was a top to bottom historic. And we're going to run through this for people who may not know. So today, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were sworn in as president and vice president. First history. So with the swearing in of Madam Vice President, she is the first woman, the first black woman, the first black person, the first person of South Asian descent, the first person of Jamaican American descent to be sworn into the office of the vice presidency. In addition, on the senatorial side, you had John Ossoff, who is the first Jewish person to serve Georgia in the Senate. You have Senator Warnock, who is the first black person to represent Georgia in a democratically elected position. And we have the first Latino senator, Alex Padilla. I maybe mispronouncing that name, to be sworn into the Senate from California, because he is replacing Madam Vice President Harris. Unfortunately, that does mean that there are now no black women who are who hold office in the U.S. Senate. So today is again like a very bittersweet day when we talk about representation and what does it mean to have an electorate that represents the people. But it's been a very historic day, a reminder that organizing works, that advocacy works, that pushing policies that move the masses is what gets people out to vote. So we're going to see what these next 100 days look like. And shout out to Georgia for having the most progressive Senate, on record. The South, who would have thought, so goes the South. Hopefully so goes the nation, kind of still from Pennsylvania a little bit. And so we'll see what these next few weeks look like.
Yeah, it's like Andre 3000 speech at the Source Awards, back in '95. The South got something to say.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like both of y'all have said already, worst case scenario, this is still a super historic day, no matter what. As far as the people who have been, democratically elected into these positions, which is always great to see. Kahari, as you mentioned, the youth poet laureate that they had at the beginning was fantastic. I honestly probably would have been fine if I had just watched that and then skipped the rest of it. But yeah, definitely she's got a future as a speechwriter or anything along those lines. So that was really great. And again, worst case scenario, we finally got rid of the man who Biden refused to name today. So I think we can all at least, celebrate that a little bit, even if, everything that follows it isn't isn't ideal as well. But at least we got that going for us. I think Biden's inaugural address was pretty decent. It was about what I expected from him. As someone giving an inaugural address, he's got to make those calls for hope, for unity, optimism, all of those things, and just really come off as presidential. Especially after what we've dealt with for the past 4 years in that regard. I still would have liked to hear more from him in some regards, though. I did like how he, straight up denounced and talked about how he had to defeat white supremacy and domestic terrorism, and everything along those lines. I think that's really important to continue to make explicitly clear, because we know Trump is gone, but all of that still remains in the chaos that he's left behind and preceded him already. But I still was a little disappointed and frustrated with, Biden using most of his inaugural address to just call for immediate unity over and over again. Which, again, I know that's kind of what he has to do in the inaugural address with where we are as a country. But some of these divides that exist in the country right now are just so fundamental that you can't really just rush straight into, trying to move past it and talk about that's not America. We need to just unify again, without, taking the necessary time and effort that you need to put in to achieve unity. Because before true unity, we need reconciliation, we need reckoning, we need accountability, we need justice. And calling for us to just all immediately unify and try to move past that without first achieving any of those things, I think is a really dangerous thing to try to do. We've seen it before in this country with, after the Civil War, we tried to do basically the same thing, just rush straight into unity and disregard a lot of the important steps along the way. And obviously the outcome of that was really regressive and a lot of steps backward for the country. So I wasn't thrilled with the address in that regard. But again, it's pretty much what I expected as far as an inaugural address.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was really interesting, and I know we're about to jump into our first guest, but, just real quickly, I felt like so much of the audience, for the speech and as well as for the entire, kind of, kind of performative theater of it all. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. I think it was directed at, those 10 or 12 Republican senators, many of whom were on the stage, that, kind of stand between a filibuster and potential, advancement of a Biden agenda. And I felt like so much of it was directed directly toward them. Like, we can kind of come together and do infrastructure. We can come together, and do some things. So I felt like that was so much of, the target, the audience. But I know we have a great lineup of guests. Miracle, if, can you share with us the exciting lineup of folks, and then we'll jump into, our first illustrious guest for the day, rather.
So we know with any administration, there are so many people who are impacted by the policies and procedures. And so coming up, we have Wasi Muhammad, who really needs no introduction, who has done a lot of work throughout Pittsburgh. We have Tracy McCants Lewis, again, a lioness in the criminal justice realm. We have Dina Stanley, who is a community mother and advocate. We have Miss Michelle Kinney, who has been working to do a lot of changes around the laws that allow police officers to skirt prosecution, accountability, and responsibility. And then we have One Hood CEO, internationally known performer and artist, Jasiri X, to close out the program. And so our first guest is joining us now is Wasi Muhammad, who's worked with various political organizing, Unite, Engage, Empower, and joining us literally had to step out from from another event. So welcome, Wasi. How are you doing?
Good. Sorry I couldn't be at a desktop or a more stable location, but can you hear me okay? Is it all right?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Thanks for having me. Happy Inauguration Day.
the inauguration day. Thank you so much for joining us. So can you just share with us, your reflections, from where you are as someone, who works in the community, who's been an organizational leader and now, works in the philanthropic community, working with numerous organizations, all over the area. What does this, without getting into the politics of it, but just, from in your role, in the philanthropic community, what does this kind of new page for our country's history mean to you?
Yeah. My certain can be uh, I mean, there's some, you know, uh, you know, yeah,
I think we
right.
may be a little bit of a delay,
Like,
but go ahead.
oh,
Yeah, sorry about that, Wasi. We're having some trouble with the connection right now, I think.
Right. Yeah, we're going to try to get Wasi back on. We may have had the same, issue, with Miracle as well. And we're going to try to get Wasi back in. But yeah, I think you're all right with the comments that you made earlier. And again, I thought so much of the target of that, were, many of the Republicans, on stage, are called. So we have Wasi back. Hey, how you doing, brother? Wasi, can you hear us?
hear me?
Yeah, unfortunately, we still seem to have a bad connection. We could hear him fine at the very beginning. So we're going to try to get him. But go ahead, Miracle.
Yeah, I said like that's one of the things about having a live show and technology. We're all out here moving around and just like trying to do the work. But one of the reasons why we wanted Wasi also to come on, in addition to talking about stuff going on in the community, is he and his organizations were very, very active in talking about the negative impact implications of the travel ban, which is one of the first orders that the past administration put in place, and that literally impacted people all across the country, but a lot of families here locally in Pittsburgh. And so one of the first executive orders that are supposed to come out today is a rolling back of the travel ban, which particularly said that if you were from a lot of countries, predominantly various Muslim countries, that you could not come to the U.S., regardless if you were a student, if you had, a work visa, a travel visa. And so that was one of the reasons why it was very important to have him on. In addition, Wasi has been building a lot of coalitions throughout the community, fostering support and engagement. So we always want to show people who have the lived experiences, like bringing them on what these elections and electoral politics really means to people and how it can impact people's lives.
Kahari, you're on mute.
Yeah, but we're going to try to get him back on in a minute. But I know we're right up at the time where our next guest, I believe, is going to be ready to join us. Tracy McCants Lewis, who's an attorney, who's been involved with the community, and someone I've known, for many, many years, and very proud of all the things that she's accomplished, and I believe is a recent recipient of a very well deserved award as well. So if Tracy's here with us, welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Hey, Kahari, Ryan, Miracle.
Hello, welcome. Like I said, I see you got your pearls on, got the pink and green on. So how are you feeling today?
I'm elated. It feels like it's been such a long time coming to have a new administration in the White House, number one, but to have a woman of color and my sorority sister in the White House. I have a friend who her daughter turned 1 in December, and they were going to take her, she and her husband were going to take her daughter to the inauguration. But because of COVID and because of all the restrictions, they had a party at home. And I said to her, you know, your daughter is going to grow up not just thinking, can I be vice president? Can I be president? It's not going to be, can I? I can't. You know, she's going to realize it and see it. Just as many Black children and children of color saw President Obama, this little girl can see that there is the possibility that I can be in federal office. I can be in the highest office in the land because it's reality. So
Absolutely.
I'm thrilled.
Yes. So, as a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha, it's been obviously very well covered. Is there any specific things that the organization is doing? Obviously, virtually, knowing that, I would imagine the parties would have been crazy, in DC, if it wasn't a pandemic. But in lieu of that, what specific things is your organization doing to commemorate this historic moment?
So on our Founders Day, we did have a really nice presentation. It was a virtual presentation. I think when I was online on YouTube or on our YouTube channel, at one point, I think there were close to 15,000 people that had joined in to watch this presentation. And there was an opportunity for Vice President Harris's line sisters to join with her. And that was just such a great image to see. All of the support that she had behind her during her run for office and the support that she will have over the next 4 years. So I think, and then you heard our national president speak last night at some of the inaugural festivities. And she just talked about how Black women and women of color all across the country came out to support and to get people to the polls. And how we were able to mobilize and have the rest of the Divine Nine, the Black fraternities and sororities come out and show support and mobilize and get people to the polls. And that is the unity that you saw. And I think that we will have that same type of unity and presence going forward to show support and be there.
Ron, do you have a question?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would just love to hear your thoughts on, all the various addresses and speeches that were given this morning. Various things that you liked hearing and that were, happy and hopeful about. Maybe some things that you were hoping to hear that didn't. But yeah, just any thoughts you have on all of that.
So I have to admit, I had to work today. I'm working today, so I was listening with one ear. But I do like the message, as I think anybody. Looking at this new administration, I like the message of unity, but I do agree that right now, I think that unity might be a little hard to come to immediately. When we look at what happened, 2 weeks ago today, and even over the past 4 years, our country is so divided. And to have unity, you have to have one side come and the other side come, and they have to come together. Both sides have to move together for there to be unity. And I'm not sure if that's going to be able to happen immediately. So I think that there is going to be a point in time where there has to be accountability. Individuals that have caused some of the division are going to have to be accountable. And I think this administration has to hold them to that. And then those that are ready to move towards the unity, let's have that unity and come towards unity. But I think there also has to be a message that those that should be held accountable must be.
Yeah, and I just wanted to ask you just quickly. I'm sorry, Miracle. I just wanted to ask you just quickly. Is there any particular policies or particular interests that you would like to see advanced over the next 4 years that you're going to be watching the administration closely? And then we'll jump to Miracle.
Yes. So I really think that there's a need for some type of federal criminal justice reform, especially with regard to policing. And I think it's going to take some work, but I think there needs to be something that comes down from a federal level to assist states. When you even look at Pennsylvania, when you look at Allegheny County, we have hundreds of different police departments throughout our county, but there has to be a way that we can have some type of federal database with regard to policing and police misconduct that could assist with what we're seeing in certain communities, especially in Black and Brown communities. So that's something that I would be interested in. I'd also be interested in even a federal database with regard to criminal record reform, allowing for individuals who might have their record and being able to have it cleared, but having a national database or repository where that information could be handled and stored. There has to be a federal pandemic response. It has to happen. There are so many things that have spiraled out of control because of the pandemic. And so I think the vaccination program, a federal program, a real federal program that will give the states the guidance they need to get these vaccines out is a must. It has to happen. And then once we get the pandemic under control, COVID-19 under control, then we can rebuild our economy. We can get people back to work. So those are my top two.
And like Kahari mentioned at the very beginning, you just received an award from the Allegheny County Bar Association, the Homer S. Brown Division, for your work here, really in Pittsburgh, but kind of like nationally. You've been leading the commutation effort and the expungement effort. I know you talked about seeing that on a federal level, but can you just talk a little bit for our viewers, some of the changes that you've seen here in Pennsylvania and some of the demands that you've been instrumental in making locally?
I think Pennsylvania needs to be commended with regard to the change, especially in the pardon commutation process. We've made great strides in that. The process used to be a lot longer, more arduous, but it's a process now where we're seeing more individuals, more deserving individuals have the opportunity to go through the process. Lieutenant Governor Fetterman is the chair of the pardon board. And I've definitely, over my years of experience working with individuals getting pardons, I'm seeing the process move along more smoothly. And once an individual has, their record cleared, it betters their chances because those barriers to employment, housing, and sometimes even education are removed. So I think that's one step I've seen. We also in Pennsylvania now have clean slate, which gives an individual an opportunity to have old misdemeanor convictions sealed or hidden from their record, again, which removes those barriers to allow for better opportunities and chances for employment and for housing. And, people once, if someone has been involved in the criminal justice system and served their time and has the opportunity to show that, it's hindering their ability to move forward, they should have these processes in place. And in Pennsylvania, we've given individuals the opportunity for it to be a less burdensome process for them to be able to move forward in life. So I don't know about on a national level. I'm just here in Allegheny County helping out, honestly. And so I've had the privilege to be able to do this at Duquesne Law School and teach numerous students who are now attorneys how to be able to go and provide this type of legal service to individuals within our community. And I'm pleased with Pennsylvania and the work that they've done to revise it. I think some more reforms that are coming down the pike are in relation to the court costs, fees, and fines, moving some of that out of the way, because again, it was always a vicious cycle that we would see. If somebody couldn't get a job because of their record, they didn't have the ability to pay off the court costs, fees, and fines. And so they could not get their record expunged when they were more than eligible to do so. So having the ability to still file a motion for expungement when you may have some court costs, fees, and fines, that's a game changer. along with the clean slate. It's really helped, again, to move the process along. So.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was, really fantastic. Congratulations to you on all your well-deserved accolades, and congratulations to your organization, for the well-deserved acknowledgement and all the interest that Vice President Harris is bringing to such an illustrious organization. So thank you for joining us. Duquesne University Law Professor, Tracy McCants-Lewis.
And Pittsburgh Penguins Deputy General Counsel. All right. Thank you, guys.
Among other things, we'd be here all day.
Also groundbreaking, right?
All the hats.
Aren't you the first?
Thank you.
I'm sorry, aren't you one of the first African American women to hold that position as well?
In the front office for NHL club, there's one of the few. Yes, for right now, we are diversified.
She's so humble, y'all. Listen, let me first. If you ever watch How to Get Away with Murder, Miss Tracy McCants-Lewis has helped to make sure that the law that they argue is correct on the show, has advised people all across this country. One of the reasons why the National Black Lawyers Association for law school students is so robust is because Ms. Tracy has given advice that helps strengthen the program. There is so many people, particularly Black and brown lawyers in Allegheny County, but across this nation, who have been able to pass the bar and have the expertise because of the work that she put in and the clinics that she created. So I know she wants to be humble, but literally a lot of the work that you're about to be seeing specifically in the realm of criminal justice is because of the work that she curated. So you want to give her flowers while she's here, and just be very grateful and thankful for all the work that she's put in.
Thank you, Miracle.
You're welcome.
Thank you all for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Listen, it's a lot of great work, and we're always just thankful when we have very talented, passionate people who are able to join the program. But we don't want people to dim their light at all, because they have really been making a lot of necessary changes in our nation.
Awesome. Miracle, would you like to introduce our next guest?
I believe that is Miss Stanley. Is she in the room? All right. Actually, we're going to go to a lot of policy and procedures that have been coming up have been because people have been on the ground organizing, turning their pain into passion, and really making a difference on the local and state levels, and soon to be national levels, because of the way they have shown up for themselves and for other individuals. And one of the people who have done that in the past couple of years is Miss Michelle Kinney, who literally hit the ground running to make sure that the pain that her and her family experienced would not be the same that another family would go through. And we're very honored and blessed and excited to welcome Miss Michelle to the program.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I got my blinds open, y'all. That's excitement in itself. People have no idea. I've never opened these blinds, and I've been living here almost a year.
Wow.
But today I opened them. And as you can see,
welcome.
I'm excited. I really am. How you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
Great. Yeah. No, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for everything you do. So to just share with us, just your initial feelings, things that stuck out today, words that you heard, lines that stuck out in the speeches that moved you, on such a historic day.
I think that even if it's not the popular opinion, I am truly excited and optimistic. Coming from where we've been in the past 4 years, this change is long overdue. I've seen a bunch of negative stuff on Facebook, and I was so disappointed. I'm not going to lie. I was disappointed. And I was disappointed, in all honesty. A lot of it is our own people. And it's hurtful. But for me to to just be in front of the TV today and know that we as a unit made this happen, I'm elated. Like, and I can't be anything but optimistic. And I wish that I could just get everybody there with me. And I know that that's not possible, but again, considering what we've been through in the past 4 years, we can't go backwards. So,
Miracle.
both of them having on purple really rocked my world. That was exciting for me to see the former first lady and the newly elected vice president in purple overcoats just blew my mind. So I'm excited.
And yeah, and I know you always talk about the purple and wearing the purple to honor Antoine and to keep his memory alive. And you've been doing that, steadfast for the past couple of years. And so again, we want to thank you so much for coming on the program. So listen to the speech and looking at some of the actions for this administration. Is there something that is giving you even more encouragement to keep up the fight for this criminal justice reform that you've been very involved in?
Because behind the scenes, I've been involved in some other things, and one of the things is the United Justice Coalition with Rock Nation, and it has given me a chance to not only give my opinion on upcoming legislation, but actually speak to one of these elected officials. So in my heart and in my gut, I understand that there were missteps made in the past, but I believe they get it now. And what better time than now? So I'm extremely optimistic, not because of the one-liners. They irritate me. I'm with you up there on that. And not because of all the fanfare. It's the work that is being done behind the scenes. And in this past administration, they didn't want to hear what we had to say. I mean, you got to figure this man actually lied on national TV and spoke to me. So obviously he didn't want to hear what I had to say. And being given the opportunity to explain what happened to Antoine and get some feedback and then get a commitment that we're going to make some changes, all I can do is make them honor what they said. And if not, 4 years from now, we'll be back in this same situation.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for that. That's a really great point that a lot of people have gotten lost in. It's not obviously, the fanfare and the inaugural addresses are a huge deal today, but it's, so much more about all the work that goes into that. And thank you for being so involved in all of that. So, you mentioned this administration is likely going to be, a lot more open to listening to, you and other people speak about that, a lot more open to, making positive change in that direction. So in addition to all the work you've done already and things you've accomplished, what are some of those changes, whether it be pieces of legislation or reforms that you're really most looking forward to working alongside this administration to accomplish?
One of the biggest things for me is to get rid of this qualified immunity. It is imperative that we hold any police officer that is conduct unbecoming, we have to hold them accountable. And in this past administration, as we know, they completely supported law and order. And it's not that I don't support the law. I support the law 100%, but it's the order that I have a problem with. I am pro-police regardless of what people think. But I believe that this administration understands that there's some work to be done. And if they're open-minded, as they say they are, and these reforms are coming, I'm going to be grateful. Actually, there's a few things that Biden has said are on the top of his list. And the economic conditions of people that look like me are important to me. Even if it's not me, it's important to me. So if he's going to address student loan issues, if he's going to address the unemployment issues, the stimulus package, those are the things he said he would do in his first 100 days. He got 100 days with people like me. Because on the 99th day, I'm going to have that fact check list, and I'm going to make sure that he did what he said he was going to do.
And just jumping from the, obviously we're talking about the inauguration, we're talking about the federal government, but you also have been involved, with state legislation as well. And I just want to remind people, about that. Can you talk a little bit about all the work that you've done at the state level and important as much as we have to pay attention to federal government, we can't lose and take our eye off the ball of the work that you and so many people are doing in Harrisburg.
It's funny that you brought that up, though, because I had this conversation with the Justice Coalition a couple months ago, just saying that Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania have a big impact on the rest of the world. What we do here is being copied and followed by people throughout the nation. So that move that we made in going to Harrisburg last year, I spoke to State Rep Jake Wheatley, and one of the things that we talked about was not letting up on this and not letting go. Those 5 components of those House bills are imperative, whether it's the use of force aspect or the qualified immunity aspect. There's so many things on there, especially decertification, that is imperative that we get it pushed through and passed in the state of Pennsylvania, because I truly believe that federal legislation will follow. And Jake Wheatley's decertification efforts really need to be addressed, because we have a lot of people in Pittsburgh that don't understand how the police departments work, and they don't understand how people manage to get their jobs back. Because for the average person, we're saying if you did this, if you committed this action, you're automatically fired and you don't have a recourse to get your job back, and nobody's just going to hand it back to you. One of the things that Jake Wheatley is pushing us for is decertification. And I really believe that we need to get some people on board with that House bill and get some support there. Because if you commit an act that is so egregious in one department, you should not be able to go be a police officer in another department, in another state, in another country. Decertification means it's over. And there are some people that it just needs to be over. So you're absolutely right. What we're doing here in Pennsylvania is imperative. And I mean, I just said this like a couple weeks ago. The world is watching us. Right here in Pittsburgh, we affect the state of Pennsylvania, and the world is watching us.
And I know we have you on for a little bit of a time, but we know Jasiri's in the studio, and we kind of want to bring him on because I know you were very passionate, and he is always one of your biggest supporters, and is always happy to have conversation with you and to talk with you. And so we're just gonna bring him in just a little bit early to add to this, add to the conversation. So welcome, our CEO and artist extraordinaire, Jasiri X, to the conversation. But hearing Miss Michelle talk about seeing the purple, opening up the blinds, getting a little bit of sun light from Pittsburgh and the hope, does that give you a little more inspiration to feel like maybe this administration can possibly get it right?
Well, I think, we still got to push though. And I think that's been Miss Michelle's idea. Miss Michelle actually was the one that texted me and was like, we should do something on the inauguration. Right. So thank you, Miss Michelle, for all of us being here, for encouraging us to provide a space for how do we feel in this moment. But, I kind of take the words, I think Angela Davis, wrapped it up best when folks were kind of even deciding whether or not to engage, to say that, hey, you put in somebody that you can negotiate with, you can push. You know what I'm saying? Is that to say that, Biden and Harris are going to capitulate to every one of our demands? Of course not. You know what I'm saying? But at least they have some humanity in terms of at least they're concerned about how they look. Trump did not care whether or not he looked racist. He didn't care. I mean, he was just going to be a white supremacist, and he was unapologetic in that. If you kissed up to him, you got perks. If you did not, you were X'd out. And I think at least with President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, you're dealing with professionals. You know what I'm saying? Folks
right.
that understand how the political process works. They know it has to be some type of give and take. and folks that we can push to say like, hey man, y'all promised us this. You know what I'm saying? You promised as an author of a crime bill, as a prosecutor, you know, y'all talked about dismantling, you know, mass incarceration, the school to prison pipeline, and some of these things, and y'all talked about like the thing about it too is like they know firsthand how destructive allowing white supremacy to kind of run unfettered can be. I mean, you had to have a situation where the National Guard was like vetted. You had to make sure that they didn't have any white supremacist ties. And so I think like after what they saw, like they understand that there are some things that we got to take care of. And I think because of the work of Miss Michelle and the coalition that she's a part of, you know, the work that Rock Nation has been doing as well, like policing is at the forefront of that conversation. And so I think it's for us in these first 100 days to say, what do we believe the federal policy on policing is? And I agree, Ms. Michelle. I love the decertification piece. I think like what folks are looking at statewide, it is powerful. And, you know, we're also looking at, you know, having conversations here in Pittsburgh about reimagining public safety and how public safety can be different and not some people that's in your neighborhood, you know, trying to like an occupying force, but folks that are really there to serve you, folks that you feel comfortable calling if something is wrong. And I think that, you know, public safety means public safety doesn't just mean police.
Absolutely.
It means other things. And so I think like part of also our work is imagining a different way, like that's what safety means, because to us a lot of times safety don't mean the police presence of the police. So what does that mean, and how can we then manifest that?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I was just gonna ask, you know, basically the same question that I asked Miss Michelle, but you know, keeping in mind what you said, that we're gonna have to push this administration pretty much every day. You know, what are some of those, you know, obviously the policing and criminal justice component, but you know, any specific issues or pieces of legislation or actions that you're most focused on pushing them on this 4 years?
Man, so it's a lot. I mean, you know, I think obviously, you know, like you said, criminal justice and police. I mean, I look at how, you know, the education department was really like gutted by Betsy DeVos, you know what I'm saying? And how like it's important to begin to address, you know, particularly when you look at the racial gap in Pittsburgh public schools education wise. So education has to be a priority, and making sure that we have resources to educate. I know that's something Miss Michelle is always concerned about. What are the children? Are they reading? Are they doing their workbooks? Like, how are they being educated? You know, and so I think that's a priority. As well as, I mean, I'm an artist. You know, although art has got people through this pandemic, a lot of artists have been found, you know, hurting, particularly artists that tour. You know what I'm saying? Because people, you know, musicians, entertainers have not been able to go on tour. To some folks, that's their whole economy. And you know, we have a lot of venues locally that have gone out of business because there's simply no shows. We're not going to shows, and we don't want y'all to put no shows on right now until we get out of this. Like, no disrespect. So I think like what type of support are artists getting? What type of support that some of these venues are getting from the artistic side? To me, just as an artist and as an organization that, you know, I know people see us as so many different things. We are an arts organization. I'm interested in that and what will be the solution to come out of something like that.
And like Ms. Michelle, like I just talking, you're always talking about the children and the education and what they're doing. Just for our viewers, can you talk a little bit about the foundation and how people can be of support to you and your organization at this time?
You know, most people know that the foundation has been established in memory of Antoine. And Antoine had one unique personality. And what I really wanted to do was not just honor his memory, but actually live the things that he was doing when he was alive. So I want to be able to give these children the opportunity to enjoy some of the benefits that Antoine was afforded. Antoine was involved in every sport imaginable. And as we know, people in low income communities, they can't afford some of these registration fees. So I want to find a way to make things like that possible. Get them involved in entertainment, in the music industry. I've managed to collaborate with a whole lot of artists in different forums. And a lot of these kids are looking for an outlet that they think is just something to do during the day, not realizing that that could be their career. So at this point, I'm just making attempts to make connections, but I'm a firm believer in any of the services that we offer have to be reward based. So I want to offer a life skills class teaching these kids the basics that my parents taught me: housekeeping, day-to-day social skills, mannerisms, just the basics. Because what I'm finding is that a lot of these good kids get lost because people won't even get past the introduction with them. The foundation, as we know, Khalil and I have been working on the website. We're getting some help from Rock Nation. So the website should drop at the end of the month. But I did, and I have to say this because I was very hard on them. The Steelers have made an extremely generous donation to the foundation. And the funniest thing is, I didn't even know, because when I looked at the check, I read it wrong. So it took me over a week to find out or figure out what they had actually donated, because I'm moving so fast that I looked at the check and put it down. So even if that's their way of compensating all the drama that they gave me, no matter what, I'm going to tell you they came through. And it is the first major donation to the foundation. So I'm really excited about that. I mean, like, I'm extremely excited about that. And again, I just want to do what Antoine was doing. A lot of people don't even know the reason why I'm so involved in the free store, and the reason why Lieutenant Governor Fetterman's wife is so connected to myself and my family is because Antoine volunteered. Like, before he could work, he volunteered. And these are the things that I just want to see these kids do. I think if we get these kids more involved in community actions, social justice stuff, and we keep them busy and offering services, that it's less likely that their parents will be in my situation.
Right. And you both talked about, youth, the arts, civic engagement, and I mentioned earlier when we first came on, I felt like in many ways, and it was no disrespect to any of the other speakers or performers, but I felt in many ways it was like the Amanda Gorman show.
It was.
And everybody else kind of was like, everybody else was kind of like the undercard, for the headliner. But, did you, what were your, thoughts of Amanda, Gorman's, words and, and her poetry today?
When she stepped to the podium, I literally turned the TV up, and I thought it was as loud as it could go. But when she walked to that podium, I said, I don't know what's about to come out of her mouth, but I know this is going to be good. And she did not disappoint. Like, the today's inauguration happened around her, and I hope that young lady knows it. It really happened all around her. Poetry was a big deal to Antoine. We know that. And it is nice to see other young people getting the recognition that they deserve while they are living. I'm sure that when today is done, she's going somewhere.
Absolutely. I think they said she's 22, I believe.
Yep. Yeah.
And to see, obviously, as a writer and artist, what were your thoughts, of her performance today?
Man, I'm always the advocate for, like, if we're gonna do something, like, let's bring some poetry in it, let's bring some art in it, instead of just having just a dry ceremony, you know what I mean? And so, like, to me, it's like it reaffirms like the way artists are able to kind of take that moment, and I think that art makes you feel something. Good art Good art, true art makes you feel something. It makes you feel that passion, and it instead of like going to the mind, oftentimes it goes to the heart. Good speakers are like this as well. President Obama was like that as well. He got on that mic, he made you feel it. And so, but he wasn't speaking today, so it was good to have, an artist come in and and then I think too, I was reading that she finished it right after what happened at the Capitol to kind of even touch on that from our point of view. You know what I'm saying? And I thought that was also powerful and necessary in that moment. And so yeah, man. So I think one of the things that I saw something from Ibram X. Kendi, the author, where he said joy today, resolve tomorrow. And that's kind of how I feel. Like, I know, you got folks that are like, this is what Biden did before, and this is what Kamala did before. And that's cool. Like, to me, it's like, in this moment, we saw a ceremony. This was a ceremony. And so you judge the ceremony on what it was. Like, oh man, Michelle Obama killed the game, bro.
Yes.
Down the carpet and killed the game. You know what I'm saying? That's what you do at a ceremony. It's like, what is somebody wearing? From what I heard, Kamala had like black designers. I appreciate that. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate that. And so that's what it's about, because it's a ceremony. And so you got to judge it as a ceremony. This isn't the administration. This isn't the rule of law. This isn't the policy. So it's okay to look at this ceremony for what it represents, particularly the ending of, tyranny under this white supremacist, overtly in Donald Trump, and celebrate the ceremony. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, so we do that today, but tomorrow it's down to business. Tomorrow we saying these bills that, Ms. Michelle helped put together with others, let's go. You know what I'm saying? This policy that APA is working on that now some of the council has adopted, let's go. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's where we go. So in this moment, man, but let's enjoy this. Like, I'm conscious. I understand. Like, we can, come on, man. Like, it's okay to go there. I know you don't celebrate Thanksgiving. Get you a plate. It's okay to have you some mac and cheese and watch the game and have a little bit of fun. We're gonna get back to work tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? And so I thought he had a excellent point that we can be proud in this moment, understanding that Kamala made history. We could be proud of that. And understand that, yes, this, just like we were proud of President Barack Obama, but understand that this is a nation that has been oppressive to us historically, and we had to push President Obama. And I think, to me, we learned that lesson, because we were celebrating, bro. You talk about celebration. Obama, we was in the streets. We can't be in the street now, but we was in the street. And it was like, it was almost like it was enough for us that he be president. I feel like because we went through that, we're more savvy now.
Right.
And we're more resolved now to say, yeah, we happy for y'all. But right now and still in the global pandemic, a lot of folks are still, people are talking about, let's get on this eviction moratorium. From a federal level, which I agree with 100%. You know what I'm saying? Like, how are we going to deal with, the tens of millions of Americans that are unemployed right now? So Trump left this country in a terrible, terrible condition, and it's going to take, all hands on deck to really get it to a place where we need it to be.
Did you guys see, though, the most poignant point for me is, did you see that Kamala Harris had the Capitol security guard who diverted all of those people escort her out? That's when we're in the building.
Yeah.
Right.
Because for her to even have the privilege to be able to make that choice is history in itself.
Right.
And it was smart. It was like us also. I kind of wish. Part of me wants to hear Trump right now, because he mad, he big mad. He big mad, and it was kind of like, yo, I'm gonna bring this brother out. You know what I'm saying? So I like that. I thought, just like you said, I thought it was a dope nod. It was like, he didn't. All he had to do was walk out. He didn't have to say nothing. Just a reminder. Just a reminder. The importance of having Black people in positions. What we can do. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that was a nice shot. I like that.
Right. You know, one other thing I thought was interesting was that when Vice President Harris and the second gentleman, you know, walked Mike Pence and his wife out. You know, I don't know if y'all had an opportunity to see that. And they walked them down the steps, and it was like this huge wide shot with them coming down the steps, and it's kind of ceremony within the ceremony. And I couldn't help but feel like I was trying to read body language, but I felt like Pence was kind of standing there like, wow, like these people are treating me with more dignity than this dude I done ruined my whole reputation for. You know what I'm saying? You couldn't help but feel that irony in that moment of just the dignity of the moment, and people just say, you know what? You know, like what y'all talked about, like, mercy, you talked about that in the past as well. You know what I mean? It was kind of like this is what mercy looks like. You know what I mean? We know if it was a 60-minute game for the first 58 minutes, you was on that same bogusness. And in the last 2 minutes, you found religion. So, you know, we're going to show you some dignity. You know what I mean? We're not going to kick you out. You know what I mean? Them people that was supposed to be on your side was trying to hang you 2 weeks ago, but we're going to walk you out with dignity so you can leave, you know what I'm saying, with some self-respect. And I thought that was a really powerful scene. You know what I mean? Whether, like you say, you're cynical or not about politics, but just the stagecraft that, of the moment and what it said. And even looking at like Mitch McConnell's body language, you know what I mean? He kind of was like, man, this is kind of wild. Like, you know, it was just an interesting moment. I felt, and Sarah, I would love to get your, I know we have a couple guests that are going to be jumping in a second, but I would love, I felt like so much of what it was about the 10 or so Republicans, you know, that may or so vote to convict when the impeachment comes, that may vote for infrastructure, that may vote, you know, for some of the things. And it was kind of like, they're kind of talking to them, you know, and I felt like there was definitely like some shame on that stage. I felt like there was times in the proceedings where they had to feel like kind of crazy because they were getting put on blast, but it's such a kind of agape love kind of way. You know what I'm saying? It was kind of getting put on blast, you know what I mean? With positivity, but people were getting called out, but it wasn't that kind of negative energy, you know what I'm saying? But you could still feel, at least I felt on some of the faces, even behind the mask, that they were like, man, like, you know what I mean? We look kind of silly for what we've been, you know, kind of portraying over these last years.
I thought Mike Pence over there in the corner was shade in itself. Because I don't know, I watched CNN and ABC, and they kept panning to him and then going away, and standing alone over there in the far corner. I think was a clear reflection of what has happened over the past 4 years. You put yourself over there by yourself, like based on the choices that you made and not standing up for what was right. You ended up on an island all by yourself, which was the appropriate place for him today.
You know, and I think it's a reminder that, you know, just because he may have switched sides a little bit in the last second of the last hour, we can't just immediately let him off that island right quick. Like, absolutely.
And just the fact that it was like, and I would love to add Wasi to the conversation as well, because I know he has talked about, you know, the violence a lot of times associated with elections and kind of like the anti-Black, anti-Muslim rhetoric that often comes into that piece. But just the fact that it wasn't like there were no incidents.
Right.
You know, I mean, just like in itself, I mean, like, and you know, as far, I guess we got to look around and see if there were any like white supremacist or racial violence at any of these capitals. But the fact that now, of course, it took, I don't know how many National Guards to be sleeping in the Capitol. Of course, it took all that. But the fact that it wasn't like it went off without any like violence or those type of incidents, I mean, that just says like, that says something in itself, you know. Wasi, how did you, I mean, were you able to answer like how you felt or
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think elections these are like interesting things, right? Like they amplify some of the worst qualities, like and you get to hear some of the best qualities. Some people are really acting right because they're running for office, and you may never see them act this well again. And other folks are appealing to the basest instincts of folks, demagoguery, etc. And it's effective. The reason it comes up, like we talked about, like the biggest spikes in anti-Muslim violence being like 04, 08, 2012, 15, 16, like those kinds of years, it's related. The reasons that we're an easy scapegoat is because it's effective, and I wish I could say that we got through an election where we've proven that that's no longer an effective strategy, but it's not. It's just kind of the group of people that I've seen like hated by the other group just keeps expanding, like when I was younger, it feels like like I felt like, all right, you don't like Muslims, you don't like black people, you don't like this smaller group. Now it's kind of like all the Democrats are evil people that just stole an election, right? And the same feeling that I have that I felt familiar in the sense that like in an election, you start to kind of make up this bad guy, like that has all the most terrible things. They're now starting to do that for the entire Democratic Party. And I'm curious where that ends us. Like, where does that land us in 2 years? In 4 years. I was tuning in. I'm a big fan of that. Let's celebrate right now and take a minute. So I'm not trying to get too down with it, but I don't want to be a downer. But yeah, I mean, it is interesting, right? So like, let's celebrate the wins now. But how do we start to transform politics? Maybe more people being victimized by fake news and all of these ridiculous kind of accusations and stuff. Maybe when a Joe Biden starts feeling it, it's like, wait, I didn't steal an election. They're accusing me of something I never did. They're characterizing me in a way that isn't fair. Maybe they'll start to understand how we've been kind of dealing with that forever, and start to kind of shift how we do politics and in their mind, because they'll use the same tactics as well. So I'd like to think that more people are waking up to how unsustainable that is in a democracy. It's not really possible to maintain that. So, yeah.
That's awesome. And also, I do want to mention that we're also being joined by Dina Stanley from Trans Uniting as well, who's also my cousin, full disclosure. It's also my cousin. Hey cousin, how you doing?
Hey everybody.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, so we got the MSNBC set up now, man. We're big time. It's just like this is like Morning Joe up in the house right now. This is incredible. Yeah. So thank you. So share with us like some of your thoughts on this historic day.
For me, it's just it's amazing, but there's still a lot of work to do. For a trans person here, and especially in Pittsburgh, we're still gonna be hitting the ground running because there's a lot of local things need to be done. With the feds, it's cool. We got Trump out of there, which he was horrible. But for the next couple of years, Biden has a lot of work to do. And when it comes to trans people, we're at the bottom of that list a lot of times. So we're gonna have to fight a lot harder. No matter what, no matter which way it was going to swing, we were going to be fighting. But this way, we may get a little bit more leeway. So, I'm just here and I'm ready to just, make it happen for my people. And that's all I basically can do, and support everyone else in that, in this community. But I think that now that we have this, election over, we need to start focusing on, the city here, because that's where we're going to get the most out of things and get things done when we're fighting locally. Now that we have the feds out this situation, now we need to start focusing on the local things like the mayors, city councils, and different people like that who were not standing there and with us while we were out here in these streets for almost a year. So that's what we need to start focusing on. So like for me, it ain't nothing really changed. You know what I mean? Like we're still gonna be out here fighting for this social justice because these white folks don't really like us, don't really respect us, and we're gonna keep on fighting until they understand we here, we ain't going nowhere. about it though.
Yeah. But I know Desiree had mentioned earlier, like Betsy DeVos, and what right before she left, she changed some of the policies that allow for schools to discriminate against LGBT students, and so there's a lot of stuff that this new administration has to change. Is there some specific legislation that you're looking for the Biden administration?
Non-discrimination bill to be put in place federally to protect trans folks. That's something that we've been fighting for a very long time, but now maybe that's something that we can really push through with this Biden-Harris administration. But for me, that would be the biggest, because right now we have no rights at all whatsoever, period, on a federal level. There's a few ordinances in place in counties throughout Pennsylvania and other states, but we have nothing on a federal level that can protect us. So that is something that we're going to be fighting for the next 4 years to get put into legislation.
And just real quickly, Dina, I did want to just get your a quick reflections on the recent announcement about Dr. Rachel Levine joining the federal
Amazing.
administration. Just some quick thoughts on that recent announcement about Dr. Rachel Levine. And for those who don't know, Dr. Rachel Levine, I think was named, Assistant Surgeon General
Yeah.
or something
Yes.
like that in the Biden administration.
Right. Amazing. Any person, any trans person who is being put into positions where other trans folks can see that they can, this is something that can happen to me. Just like Harris being put in as vice president, all black women are looking like, wow, this is a great win for us. This can happen for me, so just for folks to see that and start normalizing that trans folks are real folks and we do the same exact thing as everyone else. So that was exciting and just it was just exciting for me as a trans person, to see that happening, that, we are really being seen out here. Any other questions? I like answering
Yeah,
questions.
actually, yeah, one more question for Dina. So earlier, Miss Michelle was talking about, how influential and powerful PA, especially Southwestern PA and Pittsburgh, can be, in pioneering legislation that influences legislation at the national level.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to hear some of your reflections on that. Given the recent LGBTQ protections that were passed in Monessen and potentially in other municipalities in the area moving forward. I know the mayor of Monessen talked about other mayors around here reaching out to him about that. So I would just love to hear your thoughts on, the power of Pittsburgh and this region and influencing that type of legislation at a federal level.
Yeah. Again, it would be amazing, but like you said, Pennsylvania is one of those states that push a lot and show out for the rest of the country. So there is an amazing team of trans folks here in Pennsylvania, and we're going to be working thoroughly to do that. I live in Etna, and we just got a non-discrimination bill put in place, and I'm going to just apply for the commission over there. You know what I mean? So just putting people in places to ensure that we're okay. And we're safe. But just having those trans folks fighting here in Pennsylvania, to get that non-discrimination bill put here in the state, and I'm pretty sure other states will follow.
And I wanted to follow up that when we're talking about federal legislation. One of the first things the past administration did was enact a travel ban. And whilst you were very vocal about how that was impacting people here in Pittsburgh, but all around the country. And now that this is supposed to be one of the executive orders that this current administration is supposed to rectify, how are you feeling, and what other demands do you have of this administration when it comes particularly to the Muslim community?
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm excited. That's one of the first things that was announced, that would be repealed. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, when the phrase is that we made it, right, and then we made it through the Trump years. I appreciate that. I think we should celebrate that. Movements need to celebrate, but it's true that we all didn't make it. Not everybody did, and particularly say that people were harmed by these policies, and there's no way to take some of it back, right? So There are people that are separated that can be connected again. There are people that will never happen for. Like, so ideally the ban is reversed. Those families that are separated, those who want to see their loved ones will go. I know a lot of them just kind of moved to Canada anyway. Anybody who had the means. Those who don't, I'm curious whether they make the decision to kind of like come here and try to like establish residence, or what, maybe my country's better, right? Maybe I'm curious what that's going to do long term. So at least that's there, but the harm that is caused is not reversed. Like the trauma that it's caused people and families has not been reversed. I mean, in terms of legislation, what I'd love to see. In terms of the Muslim community, I mean, two of the biggest issues tend to be criminal justice reform and immigration. Like reform. Neither of which I think you can do that much with through the budget reconciliation process. And through our values, we want to see. There's a lot of things we want to see. Housing is a human right, and the universal vouchers, right? You can do through the budget reconciliation process. You can do that. You can do the the $3,000 per year child allowance. You could do guaranteed paid maternal sick leave. You can do pre-K for all. You can do a lot of things like that are still possible, right? Making community college free for all. There's a lot of stuff that can happen. So I think that if I'm not mistaken, like I think there might be a possibility of two budget reconciliation bills, one for fiscal year 2021 and 2022, before we have to have the huge fight that we have in a year or two. I expect as much of that that they can pass with those to be done. And I think that's what I'm hopeful for in terms of legislation, because the Muslim community we benefited. But on those two issues that are the two most prominent ones that I see, I think it's going to take those 60 votes. So how do we end up fighting for? Are we going to get there? I don't know. I'm not that confident. I think that there'd be real tangible change. Millions of people assisted by those programs that then can be passed through the reconciliation process. But other things, maybe at least like we have a better view of foreign policy. The president has an immediate ability to make an impact there, right? Muslim countries, we've been supporting horrible wars, like particularly say Yemen, our policies there, injustices to people. Are we going to speak up more for the weaker population? Are we going to speak up more and add more aid to the Rohingya population? These oppressed Muslim groups around the world. I think there's immediate things that can be done there. Are we going to return aid to the Palestinian people? All of these things that can happen, I think, without legislation being passed, right? So that's my expectation in the short term, but domestically, stopping surveillance programs or immigration reform and criminal justice reform, we'll see. I think we're going to need some real legislation for some of that might not be possible. But we're hopeful, at the end of the day, I think, once again, movements need to celebrate victories. It gets you to the next fight. You can acknowledge people's contributions. Every single thing we mentioned just now, I personally mentioned just now, we could not do without Georgia. I know our Southern correspondent, is that how Jasiri says it all the time? See, I tune in. Yeah, so like Georgia's dope. I mean, I was very pessimistic. We could have had none of that. Forget housing, forget pre-K, forget all those young people and people that we need to protect, and the traditionally marginalized folks that are now going to have that potential to receive assistance. One election, maybe none of that. Right? So that's amazing. That's beautiful. That shows me that the work was, worth it. I thought that was really great. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I know we're winding down, but I do want to just get some quick responses across the panel that we talked about, what is coming next. And obviously we are in an election year. There's been announcements over the past week. We have statewide appellate court races. We have court of common pleas races, magisterial races, mayoral, city council races throughout southwestern Pennsylvania, as well as school board. Is there any particular race that you're looking at? Not necessarily looking for endorsements or anything like that, but just any particular race that you're looking at coming up for the May primaries that you think folks that are watching need to tune in on?
Well, I would say not necessarily a particular race, but to say like, if you watched today and was kind of like, okay, excited or passionate, there's plenty of ways you can get involved in actually, remaking the way politics happen right where you live. like you said, so there's a lot of ways to get involved. So if you're interested in criminal justice reform, hey, guess what? We got 8, 9, 10 common pleas seats, district justice seats. Like, we can begin to work there. If you're interested in how cities work, we have a mayoral race. You know what I'm saying? We have races on the state level that are important. So to me, it's kind of taking what Dina said about, like, okay, this has happened on a federal level. We saw, like, a lot of folks jumped in, and it was a level of unity that existed around those early vote events where we all kind of came together. And it wasn't necessarily all smooth, but we made it happen. You know what I'm saying? We came together, we made it happen. We did those 4 events. We were out there with Miss Michelle watching the Steelers, but also registering people to vote. You know what I'm saying? So we brought it together. And so to me, it's going to take that same level of, like, unity and us coming together to, like, okay, we were able to remake the federal piece. We were able to turn Pennsylvania blue. That was everybody. That was a collective effort. So let's have that same collective effort and around making where we live better, making Pittsburgh livable for all. You know what I'm saying? Not the worst place for a Black woman to live, but a place where Black folk feel comfortable, not the place where white supremacy has the highest level of activity. These are things that's happening right here where we live. And so I would like to see that same unity, camaraderie of all of us coming together like we did for a presidential race, but on local race. Imagine if we all came together and did that same stuff, but we was talking about judges, where a lot of us engage the system. We just have a lot that we can do. So I would hope, and I'm calling on folks that were part of that coalition. Let's continue that group effort. You know what I'm saying? I was inspired by all of the people coming together for the MLK event. That was at Nikki Joe's. So I know it's not called. What is it called? The Black Space?
Black House Collective.
The Black House Collective. I just be calling it Nikki Joe's place. I know that's not the name. The Black House Collective. I love that. I love seeing all of these different organizations come together to serve the community. Let's take that same spirit and put it to these races, man, and we could remake this city.
Awesome, thanks, man. And I know you got to head out, so thank you so much for joining us this series. And the rest of the panel, what kind of races and stuff are you looking at coming up this year that you think are important that people need to be tuned into as much as they were tuned into this presidential race?
I would just say all of them. I think that the folks who are educated about any type of policies or political anything should be educating other folks. Like platforms like this, as y'all are doing and educating folks, are good, so folks can get educated and understand what's going on. Because a lot of it is these folks don't understand. They know about the Fed race, because we get out there as a team, as a unit, and we start educating folks. But when it comes to local stuff, a lot of times we don't educate folks enough. So probably just going into the communities and kind of educating about everything, about all of the races locally, so they know about their council folks, and that's something that's major. A lot of folks don't even know who their council person is in their district at all whatsoever. So just educating them about that stuff. But,
right.
Yeah, that's
awesome. Michelle?
Miss Michelle, you're muted right now.
It says that you muted it.
Okay. Now you're good. Now we can hear you.
Okay. For me, I think the city of Pittsburgh mayoral race is going to get really interesting. And the reason why I say that is probably not because people think it's personal. That's not it. Everybody knows how I feel about State Rep Ed Gainey. And I have worked with Mayor Bill Peduto. So the reason why I say that that's going to get interesting, though, is not because of those two parties. I don't think people understand how much these suburbs follow suit with what the city of Pittsburgh does. So who sits in that seat is very important, because it doesn't just affect city residents. All of these suburbs, if you push for it in the city of Pittsburgh, the suburbs follow suit. At some point, you have the entire county. So for me, that's the number one priority. The second thing that I'm really interested in at this point is these magistrate races. And the reason why I say that is because I don't think that a lot of people understand how much power a magistrate has without having qualifications. Just being honest again. You don't have to pass the bar to be a magistrate. But let's just accept the fact that they have the ability to put no cash bail, no cash bond. When you're giving somebody the power to take your freedom, there should be some requirements. And I'm really interested to see if we can get some folks to step up and want to run for magistrate, because if somebody raises their hand, I'm going to support them all the way. Because I truly believe personally, a lot of these magistrates need replaced. I think Pappas does a great job. I like his limited cash bond. I really do. I like the fact that he's progressive. But there are a lot of magistrates that are out here that are still old, set in the old times, and they're still set in their ways. And it is detrimental to Black people in general. No matter what your gender is, the magistrate's office plays a poignant role in the lives of Black people. So that is where I am most interested in making something shake.
Yes, and that's an excellent point. You know, for those who are unaware, the magisterial district courts are the most local courts in the Pennsylvania Unified Court System, and obviously our resident of counsel, Miracle Jones, can explain that even further. I'm not a lawyer; I'm married to one, so I pick up little things from here and there. But like as you said, in many cases, even in serious cases, a lot of times you were the first person that you encounter before you even get to the court of common pleas is the local district magistrate. And then they also sit down to city court, they rotate. So, there's a high probability that a lot of times in the court system, you will come in contact with your local magistrate. They run in a very small area, a couple of neighborhoods. So it's not like when Mick Pappas ran, he ran in a local area, the neighborhood he grew up in, where he was well known. Even though he is a licensed attorney, but again, you don't have to be a licensed attorney. You just have to get the most votes. Whoever gets the most votes gets to be the judicial officer in that community. So that's very, very, very important. I'm glad you mentioned that. And
Wasi is the lawyer.
Go ahead, Michelle.
I think the blessing is with him is that he is a lawyer. He has a background, so he has a better understanding of the judicial system. So I mean, and that's why I always give him credit, because I do believe that he's one of the most progressive magistrates out here. And I just wish we could get the rest of them to follow suit.
Absolutely. And Wasi, is there anything you're looking at? And also, I would love to get your, perspective on an issue that a lot of folks in the philanthropic community are looking at is this issue of kind of judicial redistricting, judicial gerrymandering, kind of reformatting the entire unified judicial system. But if you could talk a little bit about that, and any other thing that you're looking at, for the year 2021.
Yeah, I don't know about particular races again. I think, that's a crucial issue. I feel like that's going to be a massive campaign. A lot of money spent on both sides of that one with the judicial gerrymandering. I appreciate the language around it, the rhetoric, the campaign that's coming to oppose it. I think there's a real common sense reason to try to be against it, but it's going to be a tough fight. I'm sure, so I think that's definitely something that we're keeping an eye on and trying to look at. In general, I guess for all of these races, what I'm excited for is actually increasing our I don't know if it's our capacity, our knowledge base, just understanding this stuff better. I guess for me, 2 years ago, I could have named you I knew say Kobe Bryant's entire stat line for the 2009 championship season, right? I could tell you what it was, how many assists he averaged or whatever, right? But I couldn't tell you who my local MDJs were, right? Or what they did, or the difference between the city and the county and what jurisdictions and who handles human services, right? And who handles 911. And this is all info that we it's understandable that people don't know it. I'm really thrilled to see everybody kind of taking this ownership and learning these things. And that's how I'm confident that, give it some time, we'll take over all these systems. People are putting the work in, getting on the ground, going grassroots efforts to knock on doors and all that work, but also and more equipped to have these policy conversations at a high level and ensure that we rebuild these systems, we reimagine these systems, right? So I'm excited that no matter what, these races will allow us to better understand this judicial system, to better understand, like what the mayor actually gets to work on, the powers of the mayor, like whatever else. All these races, I'm excited to see that it should lead to lasting. So to me, that's a no lose. You build the movement, you build our knowledge base, you train up our new organizers and our candidates of the future during this time. In that way, you just can't lose when you go after these kinds of races. So I'm excited for that, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Miracle?
I am happy that we're having these conversations. I am not ready for the exhaustion that's about to come from these next like 5 months. But like Wasi said, it's very important that we do the education, and I think what Dina and Ms. Michelle were saying is also it's very important that we have the right people running and to encourage and to support people to run. We need people, impacted people, to feel empowered to take on these positions of power and to get a lot of these officials out of the way. A lot of things can be changed within weeks. And I forgot who was saying was like, we could really rewrite our country in 6 months if we had the right people in power with the legislation that we need to be pushed locally and nationally. And so for me, I'm very, very interested in seeing all the people who are going to run, the people who have yet to announce. And I'm very curious to see the social investment in people we really need and we really haven't had since, Social Security.
Yes.
Actual investment in communities, impacted communities, Black and Brown communities. And I'm very also pointing out that for people who are coming home, returning citizens, they are not allowed to run for any position where they can have health insurance or a wage. So we tell people, you've made this mistake, you changed your life, but you can only run for a elected position that's essentially a volunteer position. And so changing some of these election laws, that's where I'm most excited about. And in a few weeks, we'll be launching a Amend Act 33 campaign. And so I'm more interested in the criminal justice legislation that we have coming down the pipeline more so than some of these candidates. Because it's going to be a lot, but I'm very excited that people are galvanized and engaged and energized for these elections. And Dina, did you want to say something? Because I couldn't tell if not.
Maybe not. Ryan, did you have a final parting shot for us?
Yeah, I did actually. I'm gonna steal, one of Miracle's go-to questions out of her book, actually. But I think, it's as good a day as any to do it. So if anybody just wants to, this is open to the whole panel. If anybody just wants to talk real quick about something that gives them hope or something that gives them joy, in addition to all the things we've mentioned already. So yeah, whoever wants to start with that.
I'll go first because this way I can be done. For me, this past election gave me the most hope. Watching people come out. I think Jasiri said there were 4 events, but just watching people come out, no matter how the vote was going to turn out, just knowing that people stood up and decided that it was time to make a change gave me the most motivation. So again, we voted. Now it's time to do the work. But my inspiration comes from the fact that we were able to unite.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead, Wasi.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Amanda Gorman. Was she the poet laureate? That was dope.
Yeah.
very, very hopeful now. Like I love people, like just step up. I hope the administration is filled with younger people of color, black women particularly, that are going to be given their shot. Because I think that administration will really benefit from that. So that was very, very exciting to see. I felt very hopeful after that. It's not the poet I expected. Like Biden to pick, which is like maybe maybe change is coming. I don't know. It's dope. I'm hopeful. Yeah.
Right now, I was saying before we go to Dina, I was saying to Miracle and Ryan, if she's not careful, she may not be able to, get out of the White House. I'm pretty sure somebody might try to redirect her to the White House communication officer and put her in a speech writing position because, man, I don't think anybody captured the moment as well as she had. And as much as it was poetry, it was like a speech as well. It was like a public address, obviously, in the form of a poem, but it was as poignant as any of the speeches I've heard over the last day and a half, as a speech. If we just kind of divorced it from being a poem and just being a public address, it reads the same way. It's so poignant, so smart, and just so, it's kind of that intersection of really understanding humanity and just, having it was more than just a work of art, you know what I mean, to me. But Dina, what gave you hope and joy today?
Oh, okay. Just for me, seeing Camilla up there on that stage, that was everything, That was everything to me. And just to know that we as a community, as a country, really came together and we made this happen. That brought so much joy to my heart. But I just hope and pray that it stays like that. In a time of need, we always come together. We always make it happen. But it really took for Trump and do all this damage for us to wake up. So I just hope and pray that, we keep this energy and it continues to go, and flow how it's been flowing. We're out here and we're making this change for the better. And I just pray that it stays like that. Because sometimes we get stagnant. And, it's like Trump really woke us up, woke up the people and said, like, we need to be out here. We need this to happen. So I just hope that these people stay woke and just see what, when we come together, what we can accomplish. We have a Black female as vice president.
Absolutely. And with that, I think there's not a better way to close out a wonderful special inauguration edition of One Hood Power Hour. Thank you, Michelle Kinney, Wasi Muhammad, Dina Stanley, Jasiri X, and Tracy McCants Lewis, and of course, my illustrious team, Miracle Jones and Ryan White. Thank you. And also to producer John in the house who makes it all possible. Thank you so much. So thank you everyone for joining us. Look forward watching how shouts out. She's Kamal's half Indian, South Asian descent, first South Asian descent federal officer, married to a Jewish man. There's just so many, it's the new America right before our eyes. You know what I mean? It's a beautiful thing. And it's just, that's what the future is going to look like. So to everyone, thank you so much for joining us. This was a special edition of One Hood Power Hour. Join us at 6 p.m. today for the next edition of This Week in White Supremacy. So again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Enjoy the rest of this day. As we said, joy today, resolve tomorrow.
Yes.
Amen.
Okay.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Take care.